sat there in amazement as I watched my friend's kids, aged 6, 7, and 8, have a full conversation with their dad in Spanish, and then turn to me and have a complete, coherent conversation in English. They did not mix up their words when talking to me. They did not accidentally say a few words in Spanish. Their grammar was correct. English and Spanish both came as natural as could be to these kids. What amazed me the most was how they could make quick, logical decisions about which language to use when speaking to a particular person, and how fast they could turn their brain from Spanish to a completely different language. My topic today is foreign language classes beginning at an earlier age in school. I am qualified to speak on this subject because I have done a lot of research on the pros and cons of beginning foreign language in kindergarten, and I also have firsthand testimony and experience with children who have learned both languages from an early age. There are three main points I will be speaking about today. First, I will provide you with a historical overview of foreign language classes in elementary schools. My second point will discuss the pros of beginning foreign language classes early in our education system. My third main point will be to go over some of the cons in starting language classes in kindergarten in schools. So let's begin with discussing the history of foreign language in the school system. My first main point is the history of foreign language classes. According to a 2014 article by Nancy Rhodes and Ingrid Polf that was published by the Faculty of Arts and Sciences of Harvard University, the overall amount of language classes has fluctuated over the past 20 years. Less than a quarter of elementary schools had language classes in 1987. In 1997, the number had increased to nearly 1/3 of elementary schools, but began to take steps backwards, as by 2008, numbers were back to only a quarter of schools teaching foreign language classes. Schools have taken a regression step backwards in the recent years when it comes to teaching foreign language in schools. While schools have regressed, the rest of the U.S. has surged forward without the school system. English is quickly falling, and one of the most important languages you can know right now is Spanish. With 38 million people speaking Spanish in the U.S., and it being the second most language spoken in the world other than Chinese. It is beneficial to know Spanish in several different business areas, whether it is international business or construction. Knowing a second language can be enormously helpful. After overviewing the history of foreign languages in schools, I will now discuss my next point. My second main point discusses the advantages of bringing foreign language to kindergartens and teaching it all the way up through school. In a 2017 thesis paper written by Victoria Knight entitled "Why Foreign Languages Should Be Taught in Elementary," she examines how learning a second language not only helps a student's job career and opportunities, but it also helps the brain. She goes further into this by stating that a study found English-French children were better at phonics than strictly English-speaking kids, and their bilingual abilities actually help them recognize cognitive words that improves their reading comprehension compared to their English-only counterparts. Another advantage to teaching a second language in elementary school is it is easier to learn at a younger age rather than waiting to begin teaching foreign language as a student approaches high school. When children are young, the brain is like a sponge, and it is easier for them to absorb a second language and become fluent by the time they graduate. As discussed by Matthew Lynch in the 2015 article, Bilingual Education: 5 Reasons Why Starting Early is Important. Not only does learning a second language early on benefit one in the classroom, but it also benefits students later in life. In a 2019 article published by the New Jersey Institute of Technology titled "Multilingual Benefits in International Business Careers," multilingual speakers are increasingly becoming high in demand. As business becomes an increasingly international affair, jobs such as marketing managers, customer service representatives, and human resource specialists will need multilingual speakers, and having this skill will greatly increase the chances of a person being hired. Now that you know some of the advantages, we can now discuss the disadvantages. My third main point highlights some disadvantages to starting foreign language classes early on in school. In a 2019 article called Disadvantages of Studying a New Language in Kindergarten, Hannah LaRock states that kindergarten is already a difficult time for children, as we put them in a totally new environment and expect them to learn a substantial amount of information in just 1 year. So to add a second language on top of that can be stressful and affect them negatively both emotionally and mentally. She even goes as far as to say that if a foreign language is going to be taught, it should be before kindergarten, between the ages of 2 and 4. She says this age group has the most successful chance of being fluently bilingual. Another disadvantage would be the cost. In the 2019 article, 14 Pros and Cons of Bilingual Education by Crystal Ayers, she states that a bilingual education is not cheap. Most language programs are being dropped because of their high cost. Some schools are dropping their art programs and their foreign language classes. To wrap things up today, I discussed foreign language classes in elementary school. I focused on 3 main points in this speech. First, I gave an overview of the history of foreign language classes in the elementary school system. Secondly, I explained some of the advantages to having foreign language programs in place in elementary schools. And finally, I discussed some of the disadvantages of such programs in the school system. Whether or not schools get on board with having foreign language classes placed in their education program for kindergarten and up, our society and international business is surging forward, and being bilingual may be a required skill down the road in many career paths.
Good.